next lesson in our class, Israel, God's answer to skeptics. This is, I believe, the best argument, apologetic, reason for why the God of Israel is the one true God. I hope you've been grasping the flow of these chapters, starting in chapter 40 and now 41. It's so very important to see what God is doing in presenting his argument. The challenge of the God of Israel in Isaiah 40, 12 through 31 was to the Jewish people. In Isaiah 41, 1 through 7, God addresses the Gentiles of the world. To both groups, he presents himself as the omniscient, the all-knowing, the omnipotent, the all-powerful, the omnipresent, all-present God of the universe. The challenge to both Jew and Gentile who are following other gods: believe in the God of Israel, not the impotent false gods of the world. Now, in defense of this challenge, God gave an overview of the history of Israel in Isaiah 41, 8 through 19. Talked about the choosing of the Jewish people, the conflict they will have through the centuries, but how God conserves them, keeps them, and ultimately the conclusion, the consummation of God's plan for the nation of Israel and the Jewish people through the future tribulation period and then the millennial kingdom, the rule and reign of the Messiah, Jesus, upon earth. Now, in this lesson, we will see God's challenge to those who follow other gods to give evidence that their God is the one true God. If you remember in verse 20 of Isaiah 41, the reason that God gives this overview of the history of Israel is that they, unsaved, Jewish and Gentile people, those who follow after other gods, would see, would know, would consider, and then understand that the God of Israel had done it, worked in the lives of Israel and the Jewish people. But in this lesson, we are going to see God's challenge to other gods of the world, to those who follow other gods and other religions. Now, Israel is God's apologetic to skeptics. He is his apologetic to followers of other gods, presenting that he alone is God. In verses 21 through 23 of Isaiah 41, we have God's challenge to those who follow other gods. It doesn't matter whether you're Jewish or Gentile. To give a reason why their God, the one they follow, is the one true God. Now, God asks for evidence for the validity of other gods to be produced by the gods of their followers. In other words, if your God is the one to follow, the true God, we need evidence. Don't just say it. Produce evidence. See, the God of Israel has produced evidence. He has given the history of the Jewish people, the nation of Israel, from their beginning to their consummation, which is still in the future. And the rest of the Word of God gives detail after detail after detail, prophecy after prophecy after prophecy around that people, and all has come to pass or will come to pass. So here's what God does to those other gods and those who follow other gods. Here's his challenge. Produce your cause, saith the Lord. Bring forth your strong reasons, saith the King of Jacob. See, my apologetic, my reason that you should follow and believe in me, my cause, is the Jewish people, the nation of Israel. Satan realizes that, and that's why you have, throughout the centuries, this continual attack on Jewish people in Israel. Because Satan knows if he can destroy them, he destroys God. So the challenge then, produce your cause. You must have a strong reason why we should follow your God. And he then gives the criteria. The evidence is to be the same as he gave. That is, pre-right history, prophesy. See, the God of Israel did that with the Jewish people in the nation of Israel. From their choosing to the conflict they would have, to God's conserving or preserving them, and ultimately to their consummation. So if you're following after a false god or another god, you don't think he's false now, produce your evidence, and the same type of evidence that I have produced, God says. So what does he ask them to do? Verse 22. Let them bring them forth, your strong reasons, your arguments, and show us what shall happen. Tell us the future. Let them show the former things, what they may be, that we may consider them. Show us things that have happened in the past. And I told you about Israel. I told you about their choosing. But I told you also about their future and that I would bring it to pass. So bring forth your strong arguments, your reasons. From the very beginning, what you plan to do. Tell us what they be, that we may consider them, and know the latter end of them. So show us what the end will be. Declare us things to come. Pre-write history. Prophesy. See, the God of Israel has done that with the nation of Israel, with the Jewish people, in verses 8 through 19. They are told, the Jews and the Gentiles, following after other gods, to do whatever they must, good or evil, and that's for their God as well, in order to bring to pass the prophecy, the pre-written history, so we may know their God is the one true God. Here's what verse 23 says. Show the things that are to come hereafter, that we may know that you are gods, yea, do good or do evil, that we may be dismayed and behold it together. So for all of the other gods of the world, pre-write history, prophesy. Show the things that are to come in the future, hereafter. And if you can do that, we will know that you are who you claim to be, gods. And do good or evil to bring it to pass. It doesn't matter. Just make sure you bring to pass what you have pre-written down, prophesied about, that we may be dismayed. See, if you can do this, and we're not following the God that you follow, we're dismayed. Because we're then following the wrong God. Now, understand this. The ability to prophesy, pre-write history, without error, demands that the one prophesying be omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Now, I want to remind you, the premise that God laid out in addressing the Jewish people of Isaiah 40, 12 through 31, is that he was and is omnipotent, omniscient, omnipresent. The premise of Isaiah 41, 1 through 7, as God addresses the Gentiles of the world, is that he is omniscient, omnipotent, omnipresent. And if you are going to prophesy without fail, without error, it demands one be omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent. Omniscient, he must know the future, everything, because he's going to write it down in detail. Not a nebulous general prophecy that can be read into anything you would like, but a very detailed, specific prophecy. For example, the God of Israel, speaking of the Messiah of Israel, said he would be born of a virgin, Isaiah 7:14. That he would be born in Bethlehem, Micah 5:2. And dozens of other very specific prophecies about the Messiah. But we are also given very specific prophecies about the nation of Israel. That they would go into Babylonian captivity. That they would ultimately go into worldwide captivity. That they would be brought back from both of those captivities. That it was actually Cyrus that God would raise up to allow them to go back from Babylonian captivity and build the temple. And many more very specific prophecies. So if you're going to pre-write history, prophesy, you must be omniscient. But you also must be omnipotent, all-powerful. You need to be more powerful than all who would try to prevent your prophecies from coming to pass. See, if you pre-write your plan down, and God has, the God of Israel, if you have an enemy, you better make sure that you're more powerful than the enemy. Because that enemy is going to try to thwart your plan. See, God did that with Israel. Satan knows that Israel is the apple of God's eye, the Jewish people. But the plan of God is wrapped in that nation, that people. So he has repeatedly, Satan has, tried to destroy them. But Satan is not strong enough. God is more powerful than Satan and his demons and all the armies of the world. So you must be omnipotent as well. But thirdly, you must be omnipresent. See, if you're only one and God is one, your enemy, if it's more than one, can be everywhere around you. They can be in the front of you, in the back of you, on both flanks, perhaps from above and below. So you need to be omnipresent. You need to be everywhere. So even though you are stronger than him, you have to be everywhere to stop him and his cohorts from defeating your plan. Prophecy demands the attributes of omniscience, omnipotence, and omnipresence. God proves through his prophecies with Israel that he is all those. And he challenges the gods of this world to pre-write history and to bring to pass what you have written, that we might be dismayed if we're not following after your God. No other god of this world does that. No other religion of the world does that. Only the God of Israel. Only the Bible. The God of Israel is the only one who accurately, without fail, gives specific, detailed prophecies. His apologetic is the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. No other God, no other religion provides amazingly detailed prophecies that have come to pass. That is why we are challenged in regard to prophecy and its fulfillment. Earlier in the book of Isaiah, in chapter 34 and verse 16, seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read. No one of these shall fail. He's talking about prophecies. No one of these shall fail, not a one. None shall want her mate. Not one will lack completion. Why? For my mouth, God's mouth, it hath commanded, he has spoken it, and his spirit, it hath gathered them. And we are challenged, check out the Word of God, the Bible, the book written by the God of Israel. Prophecy after prophecy after prophecy, all will come to pass, proving that the God of Israel is the one true God, the omniscient, omnipotent, omniscient God of the universe. If you're following after another God, Allah, the God of Mormonism, whomever, if you're an atheist or an agnostic, you are in dire straits and you should be dismayed. There is no answer to the pre-written history of the nation of Israel. Detail after detail after detail, and establishes beyond question that God exists and that the God of Israel is the one true God of the universe. Follow him. Israel and the Jewish people are his apologetic. We have one more lesson to consider in this class. Shalom.